45 years ago, in 1979, four guys out of Northampton, England, achieved what many people previously thought to be impossible. After having their first single pressed, a 9.5-minute epic telling of Bela Lugosi's 1931 depiction of Dracula, they stopped by BBC London. They went directly to the reception, passing by Motorhead on the way out, and said to the receptionist, "Hello, we're Bauhaus, and we're friends with John Peel. We'd like to go up, please." Thus, they were allowed up there, and introduced themselves to John Peel, who stated on air, and I quote, "We've got Bauhaus in the studio. They're from Northampton, and they have a new single out called Bela Lugosi's Dead. It's 9.5 minutes long, and this will probably be the first and last time I'll play this." It was the beginning of Gothic rock as we knew it. The length of epic proportions, the creepy sound effects, the distant cold voice, the dark lyrics and atmosphere, everything was there. This sound was certainly not coming out of thin air, having a bossa nova drum groove and a heavy dub influence underneath the oppressive exterior, but it merged these aspects into something completely new. And that something was ready to be expanded upon. In December of that same year, recordings started on what would end up becoming Bauhaus's debut record, catapulting this fresh new sound into the 80s and influencing countless bands along the way. That record is what I'll be talking about in this video. So join me as we analyze the songs of this seminal record, In the Flat Field. The record is sonically an evolution of what Bela Lugosi's Dead had shown us Bauhaus could be. However, not every song in a record can be a 9.5-minute long soundscape, and a lot of these songs here do reflect the time when this record was written. Some examples of this are the title track, the second song of the tracklist, and Stigmata Martyr, the second to last song, whose frenetic rhythm and unhinged vocals are characteristic of the punk era. In fact, the frenetic rhythm is reminiscent to me of some Joy Division songs, like for example Transmission. But that's not to say that this album is exactly like a Joy Division album, only to show that this record did not come out of a vacuum and was, itself, a continuation of music of the previous years, with groundbreaking elements, and sticking with the title track, since we've just mentioned it, we have a lot of those elements right here, especially on guitar. Daniel Ash's guitar work here is tremendous, particularly his guitar scratches, that can be heard throughout the entirety of this song. And the amazingly eerie riff that he plays in the chorus and is expanded upon in the solo. This is not something specific to this song. As a matter of fact, I would say that every song on this album has a certain degree of this. Even the guitar parts on the most straightforward standard punk song on the record, Dive, have some beeping sound effects that give it its own feel. The vocals here are also a whole new animal, routinely angry the most part, like their punk predecessors, but with a dramatic and despondent edge that was very rarely seen beforehand in this type of music. Sad dramatic components are, to me, more potent and noteworthy in the slower songs on the record, the crowning jewel of them being the last track of the first side of the record, Spy in the Cab. This song is special. Although the same riff is basically played from the beginning to the end of the song, there is a certain level of build-up that grows throughout it. The vocals guide us through the desolation in the song and eventually lead us into the chaotic ending, when the melody takes a back seat and the song succumbs to the noise until only a squashing sound remains, surrounded by nothing more than emptiness. This track is also complemented by one of the best sets of lyrics on the entire record. This song might be a giant metaphor on its own, since I'm not sure that the cab is intended to represent something else. Maybe it represents a place of work, which can be replaced by an office, or in a weaker point of view, it may represent a small personal space like a room in a house. Either way, we get lines about a hidden, always watching eye on this cab, absorbing and controlling everything it sees in an Orwellian fashion, whose sole purpose is to pry for odd behavior. The last part of the song mentions this line, "I spy with my little eye," twisting innocent curiosity into disturbing paranoia. As a loss of privacy turns slowly into our reality, the way this track very vaguely describes the feelings of uneasiness becomes much more unsettling. These kinds of twisted lyrics are commonplace in this record, which, I mean, it's obvious. What do you expect? The first goth punk record to be happy and cheerful? It was never going to be that. Although the topics actually do vary quite a bit. With that being said, however, a good portion of this record describes pretty empty and unfulfilling lives, although they do so in slightly different ways. The songs that do so are the title track, Dive, and Small Talk Stinks. In the title track, we are introduced to this decrepit scenery in the first few lines of the song, with an apathetic narrator who is simply looking for a way out of his current life, describing his painfully mundane routine, followed by a gloomy prediction of what his life will turn out, as time moves forward one day at a time. In the last few verses, the narrator makes a desperate plea for something that can help him catch a slit of light, to fix the people around him in a way that makes his life worth living, stopping him from being disillusioned with his own existence, like he proclaims desperately in the chorus. Dive is about diving in a sea of hedonistic and dangerous experiences, to try and cover up for an empty and shallow existence, which most importantly focuses on the idea of self-destruction. Hence why we have so many references to going downwards, whether they are the times where kamikazes are mentioned, or the time where our narrator is mixing cocktails in the subterranean. Even the name Dive indicates a plunge into something, most likely a sort of depravity. The hedonistic sights become more extreme as we advance throughout the song, going from fishnets and a great deal of intercourse to stitches and weird kinds of attractions. Ultimately, the emptiness of this way of life is pointed out in the questions near the end of the track, where feeling so alive what's showing, indicating a certain level of insecurity, self-destruction in the hopes of being perceived in a cool way. So ultimately, vanity is also a key part of his behavior, which is also shown by the line venomous and vain. Finally, Small Talk Stinks once again touches on yet another fake character. This protagonist is flamboyant, with a new gown and a bouffant drag, and through extravagant actions like handing people flowers, he tries to convince them that they are dear to him. These are nothing but superficial gestures, hiding the absence of depth in a character, with this song only emphasizing that all he can do is chit-chat. The commitment that he has to his character, combing his hair too many times a day, is nothing short of embarrassing at the end of the day. In spite of all that I've said so far, this LP is not all gloom and doom, though. Case in point, the opening track, Double Dare, which in my interpretation is simply about being true to oneself. You've got lyrics like, "I dare you to be real" and "Don't cower in night fright." As we move along in this song, the lyrics emphasize the need to stand up for oneself as well, and even hint at a slight hate of corporate proceedings. This could be a shot at all the labels that rejected them while they were trying to release Bela Lugosi's Dead, but that's just speculation on my part. The intensity of this song also increases throughout its runtime, and it hits an incredible high with Peter Murphy actually screaming at the top of his lungs, "I dare you." An ultimate scream of defiance, one might say, to end this punchy, heavy, and awesome song. Also, since I don't know where else to put this, Double Dare, believe it or not, was responsible for a delay in the release of the record. You see, the rest of the record had been recorded by the end of September of 1980, but the band had grown unsatisfied with the way they'd recorded Double Dare, since they felt it didn't sound as good as the way they'd done it on John Peel's Radio 1 show in December of the previous year. So they approached the station regarding this and eventually got permission to use the station's recording of Double Dare on the album. This back and forth resulted in the postponing of the album by 1 month. There are also songs in here that are lyrically more out there, mainly Saint Vitus Dance and Stigmata Martyr. Saint Vitus Dance may refer to a lot of different things. Originally, this sort of occurrence was associated with different types of dancing mania. Usually this involved a group of people dancing uncontrollably through hours on end until they collapsed from exhaustion, injuries, or in some extreme cases passed away. In the 20th century, this name was also given to an illness whose scientific name is Sydenham scoria, which is characterized by involuntary jerking movements. Honestly, I'm not seeing this song being about that illness. It mostly seems to be about the transformative power of dancing, which is weird, since Saint Vitus Dance isn't something positive. The track talks about synchronization and angles, the throwing of blue flashes, the distance of 85 feet. Yeah, the lyrics are a bit puzzling. Anyway, if anyone has any ideas about the true meaning of this song, please comment down below and let me know. Stigmata Martyr, on the other hand, talks about a person who is experiencing extreme agony similar to being crucified. He has wounds in his head, hands, and feet that continuously bleed. The song mentions the religious concept of stigmata, wounds that appear in a person's body in the same places where Jesus' crucifixion marks were. The chorus repeats the phrase Stigmata Martyr and invokes the Christian Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. After Bauhaus' first breakup, Peter Murphy became a Muslim, and when Bauhaus got back together, he didn't want to perform it anymore, which originated a rumor that after he became Muslim, he wanted to avoid the Christian referencing lyrics, a rumor which he dismantled in an interview with The Village Voice, which I'll link down in the description below. Quoting Peter Murphy, "That's a myth. I stopped playing it in 1998 because, to be honest, I don't think the other members of the band really got what I was writing about, and the collective intention suddenly became very anti-religious. And that song is not an anti-religious song at all. The message is, really, the dangers of obsession, of almost psychosomatic induction of that masochism. And it's way off the mark as to the actual source of the message of any religious god. God doesn't want you to be in pain and die. It wasn't anti-religious. It wasn't demonic. It was alluding to the manifestation. It is truly a mark of the Holy Ghost, or is it simply an obsession? That's all there is to it. When we were coming back in 1998, I basically banned it. No, we're not doing it. I couldn't even explain to the band why. I would just not play it. Now I do. I'm clear of those associations of the other members of the band. Not that I have any bad energy. It's a great refreshing space now. I can play my work in a way that is pure of frankly various worn out cliches. Last night I played it without singing a note, and it was pure instrumental energy, which was actually quite intense. It went well. Lastly, we come face to face with the last song on the record, the 7+ minute behemoth that is Nerves. This song, just like Bela Lugosi's Dead, relies heavily on atmosphere. In the first minute or so, you hear nothing but an ominous piano note, a sound effect that looks like silverware falling on plates, and occasional guitar shredding with some sound effects prominent in the rest of the record. Finally, after 2 minutes, the song awakens, with heavy guitars, disjointed keyboards, and sermon-like vocals, describing the physical manifestations of anxiety and their unsettling nature. The sentence, "nerves like nylon, nerves like steel," being repeated over and over again. Near the ending of the song, the bass increases, the chaos increases, and the intensity goes through the roof until Peter Murphy yells, "Stop," thus ending the record. In the Flat Field was released to mostly negative reviews, who deemed the album unremarkable. According to the Swallowed in War article, for example, Enemy's review of this record was meaningless moans and flails bereft of even the most cursory contour of interest, a record which deserves all the damning adjectives usually leveled at grim-faced modernist noise. For much of their existence, Bauhaus were simply categorized as goths and thrown away by the press, and this album was no exception. However, with the passage of time, it started being looked at as the classic album that it is, being now regarded as one of the greatest debuts of all time, that to this day seems fresh to the ears of the people who give it a listen. And I hope that you'll give it a listen too, if you haven't already. And tell me down in the comments below what you think of this record. And that's it. My name is Joe Fiki Fiki, and I'll see you later on with another video. Bye bye.